Hello and welcome back to From Heart to Heart. Last episode we've seen the basics of our heart, so the structure and the function of the heart. This episode we'll be seeing cardiac investigations. Those are the tests we take to diagnose if we have a problem with our heart. Am I right, doctor?
Absolutely. And it's essential to conduct these tests because if you do not have a diagnosis, you cannot have a treatment. And we usually say it in practice, no diagnosis, no treatment.
Here is a video to start us off.
They just show some of the tests. I cannot show all the tests in that very little period of time, but it will cover a great deal of these tests.
Whilst you're in hospital, you may need to have some tests on your heart.
May I ask you just to check the consent form, if I could just ask you...
This chapter takes a look at the ones you're most likely to have once you've been admitted, or when you go back for a follow-up appointment. When you arrive at hospital with a suspected heart attack, the doctor or nurse will be looking for signs which show that a blood clot has either completely blocked or is partially blocking one of your coronary arteries.
Okay, I'm going to ask you some questions.
An ECG or an electrocardiogram is one of the first tests they'll do to help them establish what's happening. Small sticky patches called electrodes are put on your arms, legs and chests and connected to a recording machine. This measures how the electrical part of your heart works, the part that makes the heart beat and tells it when to pump blood around the body.
I've just had a look at your ECG and it looks like you're having a heart attack, okay?
If the heart is damaged, the electrical impulses have to find another way around the damaged area, which is why it's often possible to tell from an ECG test whether you've had a heart attack. During your hospital stay, you may also be asked to have an ECG while walking on a treadmill. This is known as an exercise ECG, and it shows how your heart responds when it's working harder. Blood tests can also help to establish what's happened to your heart. You may also be sent for a coronary angiogram or angio. This test looks inside the coronary arteries to find disease. A fine tube called a catheter is threaded up from the femoral artery at the top of your leg into your heart. A special dye which shows up on X-rays is then injected through the tube into the coronary arteries. It's filmed using an X-ray camera placed over your chest. This information helps your doctor decide what, if anything, needs to be done to improve the blood supply to your heart.
Bottom here, legs either side.
To find out exactly how your heart muscle is taking up blood from your coronary arteries, you may be asked to go for a myocardial perfusion scan or thallium scan. During this test, you'll be asked to pedal on an exercise bike, or if you're unable to do this, then drugs are used to speed up the heart rate to mimic exercise.
I'm just going to give you the radioisotope part.
Okay.
A small amount of radiation is injected into the blood, and after a brief rest, the heart is photographed by a special camera that can see the radioactive material. This test produces detailed images showing which parts of the heart muscle are short of blood and measures the severity of the condition. Magnetic resonance imaging, or an MRI scan, will also produce extremely accurate pictures of the heart.
Here we go. Right, we'll start now.
Okay, Lou, we're just going to start with the first scan.
During the scan, you'll need to lie in a short tunnel and you'll be asked to take a number of held breaths while a series of pictures are taken.
Well done, breathe away.
The thought of a test can be worrying, but with accurate assessments, your doctors can make sure they find the right treatment for you and help you make the best recovery you can from a heart attack.
Help yourself to the tea and coffee.
Oh, I can have tea now.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
As you can see from these two videos, some of the tests are invasive and some are non-invasive.
What does that mean?
Invasive means getting into the body to get what we would like to get information-wise.
So that's certainly uncomfortable and more painful, right?
That's true. No matter if we give local anesthetic or else, still it is not that easy like standing in front of a machine and having a chest x-ray. So it's definitely less comfortable, and it just applies in a great deal to our spiritual life. In our spiritual life, if there is something wrong and I need to know what it is, then sometimes I have to go through painful investigations. And I have to come out of my comfort zone and dig deep into my soul to find out what is wrong. And by this, I'm really having an invasive investigation.
In the first epistle of Paul to the Corinthians, chapter 13, verse 5, it says, "Examine yourselves as to whether you are in the faith. Test yourselves. Do you not know yourselves that Jesus Christ is in you, unless indeed you are disqualified?" What does that verse mean?
It means exactly as we said. We have to examine ourselves to see if we are on the right path or not, if we are solid in our faith or not, if we are following the teachings of our Lord Jesus Christ. And it is so important to realize that, unfortunately, we sometimes tend to be complacent in our faith and try to cover up ourselves, cover up our mistakes, and try to justify ourselves. And by doing that, we are really deceiving ourselves, because we don't know what is wrong with us, and hence we do not try to improve. But if we are honest enough and dig deep into ourselves to find out what is wrong, that is the only way we can get better and we can proceed forward.
But I think people at home are wondering, how do we examine ourselves? Are there any steps to take?
Absolutely. The first step is to sit with yourself. That is the beginning. You have to sit with yourself and dig deep, and you have to be open, and you have to be honest. You have to know exactly that this is wrong, what I'm doing is wrong, and I try to find out what causes this kind of behavior I'm behaving, and then try to get rid of it, try to find the reason why I'm doing that. And this process of introspection in itself sometimes is very painful, because people tend to think of themselves as really being good, righteous, but to face yourself and say, no, I'm not even close.
It's hard.
It is hard.
Yeah.
The second step is to go and sit with your father of confession or a spiritual guide. And then comes the next invasive test. You have to be open and expose yourself completely. I do remember when we were young, one of the bishops in Egypt told us, the more honest and the more open you are, the more comfort you will get at the end of the session, of the confession session. If you try to cover up, you are lying to yourself before lying to anybody else. And you will be basically avoiding any progress in your spiritual life. So that is the second step. The third step is you can always listen to sermons and read spiritual books, because these will guide you in the spiritual path. It will explain to you what to watch for and how to examine yourself and how to improve. And the fourth thing you can do is to compare yourself or gauge yourself against the Word of God in the Bible and against the lives of the saints, because then you can discover a lot about yourself. And without doing that, you will never be able to really have a clear vision of what your life, what your spiritual life is like. And the last thing but not least, you have to always pray that God may give you the courage to face your deficiencies and weaknesses and to expose them to you and give you the power and the strength to change them and improve.
For those who want to remember this at home, there is an easy way to remember it. You can examine yourself with sleep. S is for sitting with yourself on a regular basis. L is for listening to the Bible and to sermons. E is to expose yourself, whether to your father of confession or to God during prayers. The second E is for the examination, according to the Bible or in comparison of saints' lives. And finally, P is for prayer for God's help. Always remember the verse of the day, which is, examine yourselves as to whether you are good in the faith. Test yourselves. Corinthians 13:5. God bless, and we'll see you next time on From Heart to Heart.